We've spoken about HS2 a lot over the last year or so. You must be delighted.
I was delighted, actually, and of course the Prime Minister and the then-Chancellor came up on Tuesday to confirm the decision. But the key thing is it was the right decision. I've always argued that, and there was a strong business case for doing it. So I always suspected that ultimately we'll get to this point, which, of course, is a great investment for the West Midlands.
You said you suspected that we'd get to this point. Were you a little bit nervous at one point, or...?
Yeah, I was. Straight answer, I was nervous, because quite rightly, when the Prime Minister won the leadership election, he said straight away, we've got to have a review of this. And in any review, there is risk. But as you'll probably know, I was a member of the review panel, so I was lucky enough to see the business case. And when I saw that, I thought eventually this will come through. But there's also the politics. The economics was quite clear, actually, but the politics was also challenging. So I'm really pleased that an overall Conservative majority led to the Prime Minister giving a decisive decision.
As you said, the politics was always challenging. One of your allies, if you like, in Westminster was Sajid Javid, the former Chancellor, who was a big supporter of HS2. What do you make of the reshuffle where he lost his job, he quit?
Well, you're right. His decisive intervention, I think 2 days before the Prime Minister and he met around HS2, was really good, that he came out really clearly, wasn't playing games. He just said, this is what I believe in, there it is. So that was admirable behaviour. Personally, I'm very sorry to see him go. I would describe him as a good local MP, of course, a West Midlands MP, so a friend for many years. And I'm sorry to see him go in that respect, because he did a lot of very good things, from work around homelessness when he was in housing department, work around the Windrush piece, if you remember what he took on in the Home Office. Incredible how decisive he was there. But very clearly, much as I admire Sajid, the government is bigger than one individual, and I'm sure that Rishi Sunak will continue the mission of the Treasury.
Interesting to hear your views, though, on Sajid Javid. I mean, there were reports that he was someone who was trying to rein in spending, to impose fiscal discipline at a time when others around the Prime Minister were keen to kind of turn on the spending taps. Are you a bit worried about his departure?
No, I'm not worried about his departure. I will miss him. I had a huge confidence in him, but I've never believed that the Treasury was dependent on one individual, actually. I think there's a huge tendency this week to over-personalise all of this story, actually. And I think very simply two things are going on. The Prime Minister's come in with a clear commitment to levelling up. He wants to invest in infrastructure. HS2 is the first thing. I'm sure we'll see other things at the budget. And at the same time, the Treasury was doing its job, saying, hang on a minute here, we've got to have absolute discipline in our finances. And that's what, as a party, we've worked for 10 years, and we're not going to let that be jeopardised at all.
This is your kind of opportunity. What would you like to see in the upcoming budget?
So I guess the first thing I must say as Mayor of the West Midlands is the things that we'd like to see for our region. So two things that stand out there. Of course, investment in regional transport is critical. Now, there's a lot of work done about why do not just Birmingham, but Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, all of those areas, why do they relatively underperform economically compared to their sister cities around the world? And this piece about the lack of connectivity, quality of transport in those cities is always pointed out. So we basically want the same sort of connectivity as you enjoy in London, putting it very bluntly. So let's get on and invest in our metro. We've had clear commitment from the government that that will happen. Then the second thing, of course, for us particularly, has been the wonderful progress we've made around clearing up derelict brownfield sites to build houses on those areas. We've doubled our rate of house building in the West Midlands. It has needed government support, so those are the two local things. Then we might come to some things we need nationally, and that I'd probably highlight the whole question about business rate reform. And of course, I want to see a budget that really gets behind the whole climate change challenge as well. There's a real opportunity to show leadership in that respect.
We are, of course, leaving the European Union. We're entering the next phase, if you like, of our talks with the EU, those trade talks. I'm keen to get a sense of what you would like to see in them, because in December 2018, you wrote this: of course, issues like the Irish border, fishing rights and the backstop are important, but here in the Black Country, in Birmingham, Solihull and Coventry, free access to the European market is critical. Are you worried that in these trade talks, that free access to the European market is going a little bit down the list of priorities?
I'm not worried, but I am determined that we make our case for that to be delivered, actually. So the reason, probably I should just explain that I said that, is if you look at the West Midlands economy, it's still the manufacturing heart of the country. Leader in the automotive sector, obviously our lead brand would be Jaguar Land Rover, the biggest manufacturer in Britain. And the way in which all of those manufacturing companies as well, in aerospace as well, the way in which they all work is their goods come in through from Europe in the supply chain, probably go back out to Europe, back again. That's the sort of complex supply chain we've got now. And we have to have that tariff-free and delay-free. So that is what I hope we will be achieving in the negotiations which are going on now.
When you say tariff-free and delay-free.
Yes.
Because if you listen to what the government is saying at the minute, it feels as if sovereignty, the opportunity to diverge, sovereignty over rules, regulations, laws, is being prioritised above the frictionless trade that you described there.
So I think the government actually understand this extremely well. All I will say, we've had lots of really significant ministers who are around the table, particularly Michael Gove, coming up, spending time with the automotive industry. I convened a round table for him to come and discuss, and I am very confident that he understands, as does the Prime Minister, exactly what is at stake here. So my role as the leader, representative of the West Midlands, will be to continue to make that case. And I'm actually determined we do come through on this.
I mean, they're also saying that they will accept cheques if necessary.
Yes,
and that means delays.
And at the we wait to see about that, actually. There are ways that this can be... Bear in mind, a lot of product that comes into supply chains from outside the EU already has checks, and there are not delays, actually. So I'm up for the negotiation, and it's quite right, at the beginning of this, what are we now, 10 months of negotiation, that we've put this as a really clear requirement on the table, and let's have the debate.
OK. You, of course, are running for re-election to be Mayor of the West Midlands, that election in May. Yeah. Are you looking forward to having Boris Johnson on your leaflets?
We've done a leaflet across the region this last month, and his face is on the leaflet alongside me, because it's a very important point. My job is to encourage the Prime Minister and all of his team to take the decisions for the West Midlands. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like this. The big financial decisions are still all taken in London. True devolution, we would be taking more of them ourselves. But at the moment, they're taking London, so my job is to lobby for that investment. And that's exactly why I'm very proud to say I work with the Prime Minister on taking those decisions. HS2 be a very good example this week.
If you had to sum up the pitch in a couple of sentences, what would you say?
The pitch is, I think, straightforward. That the West Midlands was an area that perhaps didn't achieve all its potential. For 40 years, we were perhaps the worst performing area of the country. But over the last 3 years, we've really bounced back dramatically. You've seen it in jobs, in housing, in transport investment. So don't change what is now proving to win for our people.